no time for bad days or bad moods. Let the good vibes fill up a room. You know everybody feeling the groove. If you're ready, then get up and move.
You're listening to Every Deal is a Dance, part of the Look Legal Pods from the law firm Nolan Hyman. And now, here is your host, attorney Mishawn Nolan.
I'm Mishawn Nolan, and I'm co-founder and co-managing partner of Nolan Hyman, LLP. Before I was a lawyer, I was a dancer, and then I was a choreographer. And so it's not surprising that my law practice reflects dance principles of alignment and flow, especially when I'm working with my clients to monetize their creative ventures. And essentially what it means is aligning your abilities with your goals while at the same time balancing structure and reinvention. I want to make growing businesses less scary and less overwhelming for creators. So everyone I interview in this series is someone who has a story to tell about authenticity, about their reinvention, and their journey as a creative business maker. It is an opportunity to hear stories of alignment and flow in action. David Ackert is an exceptional multi-hyphenate creative. I met David very early in my career, and he's been instrumental in every one of my growth transitions. When I was first made a partner, he was my business development coach. And when I launched my own firm, he held my hand and guided my way. He's even responsible for connecting me with my two co-managing partners of Nolan Hyman. And the reason that David has been such a powerful force in my life, beyond being a warm, caring, and fun person, is because he understands people and relationships like no one I've ever met. At my firm, he's known as the attorney whisperer. Every time I speak with David, I leave the conversation feeling more enlightened, and I believe his superpower comes from his beginnings as an actor. On this podcast, we explore how someone's creative first act influences their business maker's second act. I'm excited to speak with David today about how his acting roots have led him to be such an impactful and highly regarded business development thought leader for professionals. David Ackert is co-founder and CEO of PipelinePlus, which is a multifaceted business development consulting firm for professionals, including lawyers. Over the past 2 decades, David has pioneered revenue acceleration programs for hundreds of professional service firms around the globe. David regularly keynotes at partner retreats and speaks at industry conferences. He also serves as a guest lecturer at USC's Marshall School of Business, Carnegie Mellon University, and at the UCLA School of Law. And most recently, David is the best-selling author of The Shortlist: How to Drive Business Development by Focusing on the People Who Matter Most, which is a gold winner of the 2025 Nonfiction Book Award. Thank you for speaking with me today, David. So let's start at the beginning.
A very good place to start.
Exactly. When did you know you were a creative?
My parents were both professional musicians, so being a creative was a foregone conclusion in our house. Of course, they tried to get me to be a musician, so I was on the Suzuki violin at the age of 3, right, and taking piano lessons at 4. None of that ultimately stuck, but I discovered the theater at a fairly young age and decided that that was going to be my route. Interestingly, my brother, who never had any interest in being creative, was the black sheep of the family. And he is now in litigation support, like he's an engineer, essentially, right, doing e-discovery work. And he was the black sheep. Like he was like, I want to actually, have a consistent revenue stream in my life. So I am not going to be a creative. And my parents were like, no, what are you thinking? You have to dedicate yourself to the arts. So it was very much the opposite that most families experienced.
Yeah. And so then how did you find acting?
I remember when I was in I think this was like 4th grade or something like that. I mean, I had always been putting on little plays for my parents. I mean, I was always, quick to take the stage. But I remember when I was in the 4th grade, I was watching a sitcom, and it just sort of dawned on me. I'm like, wait a minute. These people are all pretending. Like, that guy isn't married to that woman in real life, and that's not actually their house. That's like a set, right? And I thought, wow, they get to make believe. And as adults, I mean, that sounds like exactly what I want to do. So from that moment on, I decided I wanted to be an actor. I told my parents. They had me audition for some plays, and I started getting into those roles. And sure enough, it was a good fit to my enthusiasm and my talent.
What about make-believe is interesting to you?
Well, I think at the time what was interesting was that it was an escape from reality. So, I'm half Iranian, and this was during the hostage crisis in the late 70s, early 80s. And it wasn't a fun time to be me. So, I was looking to create any kind of universe in which I didn't have to be this Middle Eastern kid in Northern Virginia who was constantly being picked on and kind of, marginalized by the prejudices at the time.
And did you take any acting classes or how did you train?
Yeah, so I started taking acting classes right around that time, right around junior high school. I started finding summer camps and any sort of environment I could find, private tutors, and then I obviously was very dedicated to drama as an elective in high school. I ended up going to Carnegie Mellon University's BFA program, and then I left there and finished my undergraduate studies at Ithaca College, which has a very strong theater program. And then, of course, once I moved out here to Los Angeles to pursue acting, I was always in some acting class or another. So studying the craft was something that I took very seriously.
Yes. And what do you do today?
So today, I'm the CEO of Pipeline Plus and the author of The Shortlist. Pretty natural transition, right?
Exactly. So tell me about that. How did that transition happen?
Okay. Well, um, when I was dedicated to acting, I was actually doing pretty well. I was on a number of TV shows and I was booking lead roles in independent films. And this would have been in like the mid 90s up through the, you know, maybe early aughts. And so other acting friends were coming to me and saying, how is it that you're doing so well? And I would ask them questions like, well, I mean, I've got a business plan. Do you have a business plan? And, I've been networking. Are you networking? And do you have a system for your networking? So early on, I kind of figured out, you've got to take a strategic approach to these things. You can't just be talented and expect to be discovered. That always seemed like a silly fallacy to me. And of course, my actor friends are like, no, I have no idea what you're talking about. Would you show me? And so very quickly, I developed this coaching side hustle for actors where I was being their business coach for their acting career. And in fact, I don't even remember how this happened anymore, but I found my way into the UCLA Extension Network and I was teaching uh, something like business plans for actors, I think we called it. And I taught that class for like a decade. And, actors would come into the class and I put together this whole curriculum. And honestly, that was the seed for a lot of the work that we're doing today and a lot of the distinctions that found their way into the shortlist. Because while the audience over time evolved and I discovered that, actors are not the best marketplace to focus these skills on. They just don't have the money for it and they don't take it as seriously. So I started, learning that, okay, professional services. I married my wife. She's a lawyer. She said, yeah, you should focus on these professional services. And it was just a better fit. But a lot of the same concepts applied at the end of the day, like actors. Here we had people who were technically very focused on whatever trade or craft they learned, but had never developed a skill set or a methodology around how to acquire clients and get work.
It's so interesting. So I have a similar story to you, which is when I was dancing, I was the dance captain. I was the one in charge. I was the one who was sort of the leader of the group. And so it's interesting that both you and I, our origin story as well, we were in creative, we were still sort of straddling the creative and the business at the same time.
Yes. Yeah. And that was challenging. Um secretly I just wanted my acting career to take off so I could stop doing all this business stuff. But I found that I was just good at the business stuff and that's what was actually growing. And so I ended up getting a certificate in business coaching. I ended up getting a master's in psychology and I ended up really just dedicating myself to the profession. I think also marrying a lawyer and deciding that I wanted to create a stable lifestyle for this, new chapter had a lot to do with my deciding that the creative world was not necessarily going to provide that.
And you and I also share we also share a history in that we really put aside our creative background and pretended for a while like it didn't exist so
Yeah.
that we could have legitimacy in the business world. But even though you put it aside and it wasn't at the forefront of how you represented yourself, do you think that acting and the creative experience influenced who you are as a business person?
Oh, no question. And I think that you and I are traveling a similar journey here where we sort of went into the closet about it because we were afraid of credibility impact. And now that we're older and we're sort of established ourselves, it's like, well, this is the authentic, kind of differentiator. And we're actually in an era now where people are hopefully a little more open minded about the fact that a career trajectory isn't necessarily a straight line. Yeah. Um,
Exactly.
but I would say that one of the things that I do a lot of today is public speaking. And the reason that that's so comfortable for me and I get so much energy out of it is because of so many years of being on stage and being in front of the camera. And it's a skill and a talent that just comes very easily and naturally to me. So obviously, I've looked for ways to leverage it in business.
Yeah, and not only, are you, a coach and a consultant in business development, but you're also an entrepreneur. So have you found any of the skills, or experiences you had in the creative industries, in theater and acting, has that helped you be a better entrepreneur?
Sure, and I'll bet every guest who comes on this podcast talks about it. Where in the creative world, you learn, for lack of a better description, improv. I mean, you learn to be in the flow. You learn to sometimes, you have to go off script. Sometimes the music doesn't start when you think it will. Sometimes, right, you have to be ready to pivot at any moment. And that's a critical skill as an entrepreneur, especially in a disrupted environment like the one that we're in today, where the business model that you thought was going to thrive is suddenly one you have to rethink.
Yes, the business model that you started with has changed 15 times,
Yeah, that's right.
by the end of the year.
Right.
Um, and we are in such a disruptive universe that there's constant change. And so, I always think that being a creative helps you be more fluid, more flexible to change with whatever. Like you said, for you, it's improv. For me, it was more like improvisational dance. It's when you have that experience where you're gonna be on stage and your costume's gonna tear, or the music isn't gonna start, or the lights don't go out, or your mic doesn't work, and you just know the show must go on. You just continue no matter what you face. So, do you have any examples or any stories of any challenges you faced as an entrepreneur that you can recall where those improvisational skills just helped you get through it?
I can't think of one, and I think it's because every day there are so many. Um, we just had our company retreat. The whole team flew out to Seattle, and we had this wonderful, experience together, team building and strategic planning and all the things. And one of the things that the team acknowledged was at this company, it's very easy to fail. And that's a good thing. And the underscore is not on the word fail, it's on the word easy. Like we make it easy. There's no punishment, there's no finger wagging, there's no, I mean, everybody understands that they're doing their best and we give each other a lot of grace because there will be mistakes made along the way. Everybody, it's a lean team. There's only 10 of us. So we're all working really hard, doing a number of different things, some of which we're good at, some of which are new at. And there's never any chastising around that, right? So it's like, oh, okay, we made this mistake. What can we learn from it? What can we do better next time? And I just feel that's very much the kind of philosophy that I learned in theater as an actor versus the kind of thing that you typically see in law firms or corporate environments where there is a judgment around making mistakes and there is a stigma around failure. I think especially in law, you either win or you lose, right? And it's a total binary, and there are winners and losers in the sort of caste system in law firms. So, um, it provides a kind of nimbleness, I think, in approaching things, and I think it's also, back to your notion of superpower, it's something that we can bring to these industries that is unique, because now we're approaching things like process improvement and change management and coaching and behavior change through this lens that is less judgmental, more about what's possible versus what's probable, and much more in the spirit of innovation as opposed to what has come before.
Yeah, and what bubbles up for me is this concept of workshopping, right? When you're in the theater, when you're acting, when you're dancing, you're constantly workshopping a piece.
Yeah.
What it starts out as is not what it ends up as when you perform it. You're constantly trying new things, throwing things against the wall. That didn't work, try something else. Maybe do it like this. And you work together and you workshop something. And it sounds like you've incorporated that workshopping concept both into how you operate your business, but also the coaching that you provide to professionals.
I would say that's right. I appreciate the way that you've framed that. I hadn't thought of it as workshopping, but you're right. It is very much the spirit of that.
So let's talk about your book. How did that come about?
Well, again, I would say the roots of it were back when I was an actor. Everybody knows this is a who you know town and you're supposed to network, and, obviously you make connections. And I came to town knowing no one. So I started doing what most people do when they're earlier in their careers, regardless of profession, which is you just network a lot and meet a bunch of people. And, anybody with a pulse who's willing to have coffee with you is fair game. And I found that I started running out of patience for that exercise pretty quickly. And as I was meeting a lot of people and kissing a lot of frogs, there were people like you who I really resonated with and really felt a connection to and a chemistry with. And, wasn't even sure how we would work together. I just knew I wanted to. And so I started literally keeping a short list. Your name was on it. A few other people's names were on it. And these names eventually found their way into the roundtables that we started together, right? And that's been a big part of our business now. We have numerous executive roundtables, so the seed of that was back in the day too. But the idea was, if you can create a short list of people where spending time with them energizes you, and you have these like-minded conversations, you can create something really special together versus kissing a lot of frogs and trying to find that one person who can take you to the top, right? I was just always very suspicious of that that strategy, that sort of never eat alone and meet lots of people and I don't know, just sort of target and jockey and all of that. It just never resonated for me. And frankly, when I looked at other people who were trying it, I didn't see them necessarily succeeding at it either. I saw them burning a lot of energy and not necessarily getting much of anywhere. Um, so anyway, the short list started to formulate back then. And then as I transitioned into Pipeline Plus and creating this business, I saw that the concept very much resonated in the world of professional services and business development. And so I started teaching it. And about 10 years ago, maybe 11 years ago now, I thought, this would make a pretty good book. I should probably, compile these ideas into a book. But it took me 10 years to get it out into the marketplace because as I learned the hard way, writing a book requires so much carving out of time. And when you're building a business and, growing an endeavor, that time never seems to be there. I got about halfway done with it, and then finally, when we signed on with the publisher who got it out into the world, they assigned me a writing coach. Ironically, they were like, "Maybe you need a coach," and that was absolutely the key. That accountability got it done very quickly.
A coach for the coach.
That's right.
And did your acting influence the way that I know you just did a press tour. A press tour would scare me, but, I know you just did a press tour, and I think you enjoyed it. Did you I assume that you used some of your skills as an actor on the press tour. Did it make it exciting for you? How did it help you?
Well, what we did was a speaking tour. So again, it was playing right into a core strength of mine. And that was by design. It's like, all right, what am I good at? Let's do more of that. What am I terrible at? Let's do less of that. Um, we have hired a PR firm, and now they're having me write articles and, do more podcasts and things like that. And that stuff all comes very naturally to me. So I'm happy to do it. It's at the end of the day, I struggle with, and I think everyone probably who runs a business struggles with this, is that all of this energy is marketing, right? So it's top of funnel, and you never know which of those efforts are going to ultimately really move the needle versus which of them are just kind of wasted energy. And so even there's this assessment of what should be on the short list of things that we do from a marketing perspective. And if we're not looking at the metrics and the analytics and the leading indicators and all of those things, then it's very difficult to make that decision.
So, on that subject of let's do more of what I am really good at and less of what I don't really like doing, when are you in flow? What does flow look like for you?
I'm really good at simplifying complex ideas. I'm really good at facilitating conversations. I'm really good at being the center of attention. So making presentations or being the moderator at a meeting or something like that. And I'm terrible at detail. I'm terrible at forms. My God, you want my kryptonite? Put a form in front of me and tell me to fill it out. I am terrible at that. And so again, there's kind of a pretty clear, like, okay, this is a big picture person, and you got to keep them out of the weeds, or they'll never thrive. And so I've really, as we continue to build this company, I've tried to surround myself with people where we balance each other out.
That's great. And so, your flow is actually the merger of what you do today and what your origin story is, right? It's you get to perform, you get to um, sort of ring lead and be the center of attention and tell the story. And it's almost going back to what you described as what you what really resonated with you with acting. It's almost like make believe. Created this You've created this thought process. You've created this philosophy on how to be a professional in the world and how to succeed. And um, you create an environment to teach all of us how to do that.
Yeah, you're right. I hadn't thought of that. I mean, on some level, aren't we all creating our environment all the time? We're just not really conscious of that, right? I mean, the choices that we make, the people we surround ourselves with, the ideas we put out in the world. But I think any entrepreneur has made something out of nothing, and they should be applauded for that. It is not easy. And there are so many forces that conspire against us being able to do that. So whenever somebody tells me they're an entrepreneur, I instantly have respect, even if they're a burgeoning entrepreneur. It's like, all right, good for you for having the courage to put yourself out there.
Yes, it's the loneliest thing is to be an entrepreneur.
That's right.
Well, thank you, David. Thank you very much for sharing these thoughts with us and sharing your journey with us. I really appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate the conversation. You've highlighted things that I hadn't really thought of, or you've recontextualized them in ways that have been insightful for me. So thanks for the opportunity.
Thanks for listening to Every Deal is a Dance. If you've enjoyed the show, please share with other creative business makers and kindly rate and review us on your favorite podcast platform. For more information on how we can help with your own legal needs, check out our services at nolanhyman.com. That's NOLANHEIMANN.com.